So one of the big topics which a huge proportion of the world's population now are interested in is the potential to start a business. I believe it's over 60% of young people would at least consider starting a business at some point in their life. It's part of the reason why we exist, and it's also part of the reason why we're purposely building our brand aimed towards a Gen Z type audience, where actually the way that people communicate and things that they want is fundamentally different to maybe what it was 50 years ago with big brick universities, thick textbooks, and it was a different way to learn, and actually it's a completely kind of different market. But one of the big things that most people kind of consider, and this is very true for all different types of businesses, including my own, so I've lived experience of this, is that if you're in a job right now, you probably get a salary every month. And providing you don't mess up or get fired, you kind of know that you're going to get paid. So what often happens with a lot of people is that you have a budget for the month. So you might get paid £2,000 a month on your household bills, your car, your mortgage, your food. You might spend £1,500 a month. Essentially, you have some money left over for savings or food or whichever. The numbers don't matter, but you get the point. When you start a business, there is often a large period where you don't make any money because essentially you have to basically start something, create something from scratch and get to a point where you actually kind of, before you make any money. And what I wanted to do was talk through different ways that you can actually go through this process to try and make it as successful as possible, and also kind of talk about what I did. So if we talk about money over time, when you start a business, and almost I don't care what business it is, it will take time to start before it generates revenue. So realistically, what you should be looking at is something like that. This time between you actually start to make money or not will vary based on the difficulty and the size of the market that you're looking to enter. So if you wanted to start a car washing business, you could buy a bucket and a sponge, go to your local supermarket, advertise that you will clean people's cars for £4 each, which is a good price, but people will probably pay it. And actually you could probably start to make money straight away. But the issue is the amount of money that you can earn and the number of cars that you can wash is probably quite small. Versus if you wanted to start a car company, so you wanted to start the next Tesla, this period before you make money could be 10 years, easy. SpaceX, 50 years. But the idea is that depending on the type of business and the size of business that you want to launch, it is different. For a business education course like this, there is so much competition in the world, and actually apparently business education is the world's most competitive market, which makes sense because for one, people that claim to be good at business, you're competing against them. So it's like the MBA, it's all of the best people in theory offering this, not the same product, but it's almost you're in the same arena and everyone's trying to out business each other. That in theory, business education is the most competitive market. So combined with that, when you have long established institutions like Harvard that have been there for hundreds of years, a new challenger startup like ourselves, it's going to take a really long time to build the product so that it's good enough, build the infrastructure, the services, enough to build trust and do everything that I've kind of spoke about so far. So actually, I always knew that this period for me was probably going to be 3-4 years before it actually starts to make a profit. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this is that if you ever want to start your own business, have a feel for what is it that you actually want to do and how quickly will you start to basically earn money that can get you to the break-even point. So startups traditionally, what they would do was that they would have an idea, they might get some proof of concept and they go out and raise a big slug of money that could be a few £1,000,000, which basically is enough money to survive this valley of death to get to the point where they then make more money going forward and they can pay back what they own, or obviously they've given up equity. For most people though, and I mean 99.9% of businesses as small or medium-sized businesses, they don't do that, they can't do that. So what you essentially then have to do, well, you don't have to, but I would recommend it. If you were to work in a job where you have income, for one is to actually have savings. So the more you can save up, the more the runway you have before you need to make money. As I said, for different businesses, you will need different amounts of money. But actually, I think the smarter way to do it is to start your business, launch the website, launch the product, and actually get your minimum viable product and actually start to get it in the hands of customers as quick as you can and start to learn and iterate. So you start this process. But if you can maintain other forms of income, and this could be you keep your full-time job and you start part-time, or what I did is that when I was working for myself as a consultant, basically my management consultancy fees and revenue is actually what paid for all of this. So the way that I essentially did it was that, I'm going to do a little dotted line. So when I started to work for myself, actually that's not true. When I started to work for myself, it was here. And you had to build up to a certain point. So I still had this valley of death. And then actually where I've been on the journey that I've been on the past kind of 2 years is that I got to the point where I was earning a lot more per month than it was costing me to run. And what that allowed me to do was build up cash to then reinvest in apps, websites, branding, etc., which is brilliant. And that's how I've got to here today without any debt or borrowing or whichever. But the truth is I also know that I can't build a $1 billion business working part-time. So it's how do I get to the point where actually things are starting to take off and you're starting to get revenue? So one of the things that I've purposely been doing is that for the past year or so, I was working for 6 or 7 different clients, doing a hell of a lot of work, really long hours to earn a lot of money. But it was all because my expenditure was really high to get to this point. As of kind of January this year, I'd actually kind of paid off everything. So I still have rent to pay, I still have presenters to pay. But actually in terms of apps and developments and branding and books and stuff is all kind of paid off. So what I've actually been able to do is consciously ramp down my consultancy work. So I still have some income because I still need to survive and grow. But actually what that's done, the amount of time that I'm able to put into the business has now, in theory, doubled from what it was, I don't know, 2 months ago. That actually what that allows me to do is actually help bring this curve forward because I can do things like approaching customers and do all the right businessy stuff sooner. But the point is I've been able to go through the valley of death, kind of doing it that way, if that makes sense. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that when you launch your own business, no matter what it is that you do, there is absolutely nothing wrong. I did it myself to maintain some form of income as your product takes off. And then gradually you can taper it off so that it gradually disappears as the other stuff takes off. The issue is if you don't have any forms of income, most people die in this area, which actually, kind of ruins the business because you'll go out of business. But it was just something that I wanted to talk about, that actually this is something that I've purposely done and I have done, and I'm going through this process at the moment. And the one thing that I also wanted to, kind of give, I guess, some hope to different people. So I started working for myself in October 2019, so before the pandemic. I wrote the book in its current form and gave it to different people in February 2021. And up until December-ish, I would say actually 80% of my time was doing stuff for other people. And this is until like December. And the truth is, everything I've built, so if you ever check out any of the Roadmap MBA stuff as of today, which is the 3rd of March, everything has pretty much been built part-time. So if you ever want to think of actually how big a business can you build part-time, this is what I've managed to do with 80% of my week still being doing stuff for other people. Now what I've done is start to ramp this down because the roadmap is starting to pick up and actually put more time into it. That now it's probably about 30% of my time is still doing stuff for other people, which allows me to keep the lights on. It allows me to literally present the show, pay my mortgage, do my stuff. But in theory now, 70% of my time can be spent doing actual business stuff on the actual business, which will help me longer term. And then eventually, hopefully, it'll get to the point where the business is revenue generating and actually making a profit that I can pay myself from it and do it full time to the scale and stuff that we want. But the reason for this segment is just to both share the idea that there is absolutely nothing wrong with starting a business part-time. If anything, I would recommend it for most people. I wanted to give evidence and actually share my story that this is something I've physically done myself, and you can see everything that we've done arguably to date. But I'm also really excited for the future because actually I've managed to do everything to this level and size part-time that actually I'm excited to see what I could do full-time with proper funding and really start to accelerate the business. But it was just a short segment that I wanted to talk about. If you have any questions about things that I've done for my own business or how we got set up or anything, you can always email questions@roadmapmba.com. or reach out on socials as well. And if you catch this on LinkedIn or YouTube or Instagram or Twitch or any of the other kind of platforms, feel free to reach out as well. So it's roadmapmba.com, and we've got an app, and you can go on and learn business education and training completely for free.